Somewhere along the line, someone taught you that love was earned, that your value depended on how useful, perfect, impressive, or obedient you were. Maybe it was a parent who only praised performance, a teacher who punished imperfection, a culture that fed you the myth that worth is a scoreboard. So you internalized it. You started scanning every room, every comment, every silence for signs that you were failing. You built your personality around avoiding rejection. And now, no matter what you do, it still doesn't feel like enough. Because you never learned how to feel worthy without struggle, without proof, without bleeding for it. You weren't born feeling unworthy. You were born whole, curious, unafraid. But then you got messages, subtle and loud, that who you were wasn't quite right. Too much, too little, too loud, too quiet. So you adapted. You tried to shrink what made others uncomfortable. You turned anxiety into responsibility. You turned shame into achievement. You became the version of yourself that people could tolerate, and maybe that kept you safe. But it also buried your truth. This isn't about confidence tips. This is about deprogramming the belief that you have to earn your right to exist. You don't. You never did. That thought that creeps in every time you try something new, every time you're seen, every time you rest, that's not your intuition. That's a recording. Someone else's doubt, judgment, or silence playing back in your mind. Maybe it came from a parent who never said, "I'm proud of you." Maybe from a system that only celebrated perfection. But it's not your truth. It's a voice you absorbed so deeply, it started to sound like your own. And that's how these wounds work. They hide inside your self-talk until you forget they were ever implanted. The work isn't to fight that voice, it's to trace it, question it, and slowly replace it. You've built your life trying to prove something, to someone, to everyone, to yourself. Achievements, approval, discipline, success. But the deeper truth is this: you've confused validation with healing, and no amount of applause will silence a wound that was never supposed to be there. You keep thinking the next goal will make you feel secure, but every time you reach one, it just resets the bar. Because you're not chasing goals, you're chasing peace, and peace doesn't come from performance. It comes from finally saying, "I don't need to earn the right to breathe." When your whole life is shaped by the fear of not being enough, you stop showing up as yourself. You start curating, overthinking, polishing every word, every gesture, every move to make sure you don't get it wrong. But that version of you, the one who's constantly editing to survive, isn't the real you. It's the mask you learn to wear. The truth is, your worth doesn't live in how you're perceived. It lives in how deeply you allow yourself to exist without explanation, to take up space, to breathe fully. And the moment you stop trying to be impressive is the moment you start being real, and real is always enough. You wait for people to recognize you, for proof, for something undeniable to finally tell your nervous system, you made it. But that's the trap, because the longer you outsource your worth, the more fragile it becomes. It can be revoked, ignored, forgotten. But when you build worth from the inside, it doesn't matter who claps. You stop waiting for permission. You start walking differently, not louder, just fuller. Because when you stop needing external confirmation, you start becoming undeniable by presence alone. And that's where real value lives, in self-recognition that doesn't beg to be seen. You keep wondering what's wrong with you, why you always feel behind, why nothing feels fully yours even when you earn it. But this isn't about defect, it's about wiring. You were taught to believe your value had to be earned, that rest equals laziness, that love equals sacrifice, that confidence equals arrogance. These messages didn't come from truth, they came from fear. And when fear educates you, it creates a self that's always shrinking to survive. But you're not here to survive anymore. You're here to expand. And expansion starts when you stop seeing your insecurity as your identity and start treating it like the programming it is. There's no magic moment where you wake up and finally feel complete forever. Even healed people have insecure thoughts. The difference is, they don't obey them. They don't let those thoughts steer the ship. They hear the doubt and still speak, feel the fear and still move. The illusion that one day you'll arrive keeps you stuck waiting for permission. But wholeness isn't given, it's claimed, in small choices, quiet acts, and consistent self-respect. Being enough isn't about erasing the voice that says you aren't, it's about no longer believing it. You think if you just get it all right, if you say the right thing, look the right way, never mess up, then you'll finally feel safe. But that's not ambition speaking. That's fear trying to protect you from rejection. Perfectionism tells you that flaws make you unlovable, that mistakes erase your worth. But real power comes when you drop the act, when you let people see the cracks and stay anyway. Because vulnerability is where connection lives. And connection is where healing begins. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be honest. That's what makes you unforgettable. You keep thinking if you just work harder, give more, prove yourself again, eventually you'll feel like enough. But how long have you been running? How many victories did you rush past because the next one was supposed to fix the feeling? Hustle isn't healing. It's often a distraction from what you're afraid to feel. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to push harder. It's to stop, to rest, to face yourself without a performance. Because true worth can't be earned. It can only be remembered. And that remembering begins in stillness. You've been waiting for someone to tell you that you're finally allowed to feel proud, that you've done enough, that you are enough. But the people you're waiting on might never say it. And even if they did, it wouldn't land. Because what you're really craving isn't their words, it's your own. You've silenced your own approval for so long that external validation feels like oxygen. But it's not. It's a sugar rush. Real nourishment comes when you give yourself the validation you've been outsourcing. When you look in the mirror and say, I trust me, I respect me, I decide who I am now. You won't end this pattern by achieving more, or by becoming someone new. You end it by owning who you already are. Flaws, history, depth, softness, scars. You end it by refusing to let insecurity run your identity. It can still speak, but it doesn't get the final word. That belongs to you. The real you. The one beneath the roles, beneath the edits, beneath the mask. When you live from that place, you don't need to prove yourself. You just are. And that's where the chase finally stops. Because you're not chasing anymore. You're choosing. The parts of you that were labeled too emotional, too intense, too quiet, too weird, those weren't flaws. They were fragments of your truth that scared people who hadn't met their own. So they shut you down. And you learned to self-edit. To abandon yourself before others could. But here's the truth. Your fullness was never the problem. Their smallness was. And now that you're grown, you don't have to keep dimming to survive. You get to be seen without shrinking. You get to belong without blending in. And the people who matter will never ask you to become less just to be loved. No external moment will deliver the validation you're chasing, not the title, the relationship, the transformation, because this isn't a problem of lack. It's a problem of disconnection. And once you reconnect with the part of you that never needed to be earned, the part that simply is, the war ends. Not because the voice of insecurity disappears, but because you stop confusing it for truth. And in that space, you'll find peace. You'll find power. You'll find that you were always enough, not because of what you became, but because of who you never stopped being.